Hi guys, again, my name is Amir Levy, I'm from Redis Labs. And I want to talk today a little bit about Redis. How do we see the Redis market today? A little bit of marketing slide just to show you the positioning of Redis today in the market. And then explain to you who is Redis Labs, what do we do, and what is the solution, what we call the Redis enterprise solution that we provide on top of the Redis open source solution. So first of all, Redis is an open source solution. It's considered today the leading in-memory database platform. I know that a lot of people who are looking at Redis as a key value solution and also mainly for caching. So first of all, Redis is more than a key value. Redis is a data structure. It's much more complex than just key value. And there are a lot of companies who are using Redis not just for caching, but for mission-critical application as the entire persistent database. Just to give you an idea, Twitter, most of the database is running on Redis. Baidu, the big Chinese companies, everything is running on Redis. And we see more and more companies using Redis for more advanced use cases, and there's a reason for that. And we're going to discuss it in a few more slides just for you to understand why Redis is becoming more and more popular. Caching is the most popular use case for Redis. And today, it's actually becoming the facto solution in the market. Even if you go, Microsoft, IBM, all the big companies, and you talk about caching, Redis. AWS, Elasticache, it's Redis. Azure, it's Azure Redis, it's Redis. So Redis is becoming de facto the solution for caching, but Redis can do much, much, much more. And we're going to show you some use cases, some companies who've been using it, etc. And it can do, of course, operational, analytics, or even hybrid use cases. We're going to give you some short examples of some of the use cases that you can do with Redis. So who is Redis Lab? Redis Labs, first of all, we are the open source home. Redis was created around 10 years ago by Italian guy named Salvatore in Italy. He's joined Redis Labs 3 years ago. He's part of the Redis Labs company. He's heading the open source development. So we are responsible for the open source, for the future of the open source, the roadmap, etc. By the way, the models that Tal presented to you before is part of our strategy. Our strategy is first to enhance the open source and to take Redis to more enhanced capabilities, to make Redis much more open and agile to serve different kind of use cases, but also always maintaining the most important thing about Redis. And if you go to redis.io, and that's the open source website, you see that Salvatore wrote a manifest, and it's all about simplicity and performance. So we're always keeping the key values of Redis about simplicity, performance, even when we are releasing a new features. And like we did in the models, what we do is some of the times is part of the open source, some of the times are proprietary unique features that we put on top of the enterprise. But again, part of our vision is to make Redis a leading NoSQL database, not just a key value solution or data structure solution. But we also provide what we call Redis E. It's Redis enterprise solution. What we do is what Red Hat to Linux. We encapsulate the open source to provide additional functionalities and enhancements that are important for some of our enterprise customers, mainly to move into production, including support, we'll talk about it, but also some unique features that we are providing on top of the Redis open source for those customers who want to use Redis in other kind of scenarios. So a little bit about Redis. This is a survey being done last year in Stack Overflow, is the most famous website in the US. And you can see the most loved database is Redis, by far than anybody from even all the traditional rational databases. People who are using Redis likes the solution in a way that it's simple, it delivers what it says, and this is the reason Redis is very, very popular, because developers or organizations that got to use or start using Redis found it a very, very useful solution, a simple solution, easy solution, deliver what it says, and this is the reason it's becoming more and more popular, because people are introducing Redis to other developers, organizations are beginning to use Redis in more and more scenarios, so the community of Redis is growing dramatically compared to anybody else. Some few more popularity ranking just to show you where Redis is positioned in the market today. I know that some of you already been using Redis, using our solution. Some of you are beginning to use Redis, and some of you are looking into Redis. So just to give you some ranking to show you where Redis is positioned today in the market and why so many people are looking into Redis. First of all, it's the first database technology on AWS and apparently also on Azure. So if you go today to AWS, to cloud deployment, what is the most deployed database on AWS? Redis is number one. Just to show you how many people are actually using Redis. It's the most loved database. It's the number one database used by Node.js developers. It's the number one database in top paying technologies. Very interesting, guys. So people who know Redis usually get paid more. Number one database on Docker. If you go to the Docker website, the number of Docker Redis containers that have been downloaded this year is 280 million. MySQL was something like 40 million. Cassandra was something like 20 million. Just to show you the difference, the gap. Because Redis is a single thread, it is much more suitable for microservices, a Docker environment, but the gap between Redis and the others is huge, is amazing. It's the number one NoSQL in user satisfaction. Again, people who are using Redis like the solution. There's another slide about the Gartner report. The top score that we got on Gartner report was in two things. First of all, user satisfaction. We like to work with Redis. We love to work with Redis Labs. Second thing is time to market. Meaning that with Redis, I can develop new application or new scenarios half the time than any other technology. That means I can introduce new business applications in a very, very short time, and that's part of the user satisfaction. And the number one growth among top 3 NoSQL database. If you look at the NoSQL database domain today, there you see 3 leaders. Cassandra, MongoDB, Redis, those are the top 3 leaders. Redis is growing by far than the others, and we predict that Redis is probably going to be number 1 within the next year or 2 because the adoption of Redis is by far faster than any other NoSQL database. Now, we talk about NoSQL, you know, a lot of the time people are asking, is Redis better than Cassandra or MongoDB? There's no such thing as a who is better, what's the best database. It depends what you're trying to do. Redis has its own advantages. A lot of the time, Redis is being used together with Cassandra, MongoDB, and other databases in order to complement and to provide additional functionalities that are missing from the other databases. And number 1 database in skill demand. If you go today in the US, you know, for new employees, what is the number 1 skill demand? Redis. Very interesting. So, where do we see Redis today? I think that, you know, the whole hype of big data that started a few years ago, you know, Hadoop, MongoDB, Cassandra, the ability to manage huge amount of data, this is where the NoSQL hype started with all of those solutions. What we see today in the market, it's not just about how do I manage huge amount of data, is what do I do with it. The market today is very competitive. We need to make very, very fast decisions in real time, and this is exactly where Redis fits into those type of scenarios. I always give an example with Amazon that's very, very important, you know, in e-commerce because Redis is very, very strong in e-commerce. And the example is, you know, if you go to Amazon and you search for a product, the price I will see and the price that my colleague will see are different prices. And the reason for that is that Amazon is running a lot of algorithms behind the scene to determine one thing. What is the maximum price I'm willing to pay now for that product? And it is based on history, it's based on LinkedIn, it's based on Facebook, and it's based on recommendation. Now, all of those calculations has to be done in real time with less than a millisecond in order to determine what's the price. And in order to provide this kind of a service for millions of users at the same time, you need a robust database that can handle this amount of operations. And this is exactly where Redis comes in. So for example, another e-commerce is one of them, and we see more and more e-commerce companies are trying to personalize our experience. You know, what will be the recommendations, what will be the best price for you, in order to attract more and more customers into the website. Today, e-commerce is growing faster than anything else, and companies need to be competitive compared to others, so they have to make very smart decisions and to attract people to come into their website compared to the competition. IoT. Think about it, you know, autonomous cars. 1 million autonomous cars driving on the road, sending information in real time in order to decide whether to turn left or to turn right. You need a database that can ingest this amount of data in real time. And Redis is one of those databases that is built for this huge database data ingestion. Any other traditional rational databases or big data database, most of them, probably you need to build a huge cluster or we fail. So a lot of the time we use Redis as a sort of a front end to ingest this amount of data in order to allow us to make, again, a fast decision. So we see it a lot in IoT. We see it a lot in metering. We see it a lot in fraud detection. Again, fraud detection, we see a lot of security companies need to be much more advanced in making decisions. No, it's not just about, today to detect whether it's a fraud or not. It's much more complex than it used to be, and you have to run a lot of information behind the scene in order to make a decision or to detect fraud. By the way, we have a company that is using us that is a very smart solution of they call BioCatch. What they do, they actually, they look at the way you use your mobile phone. So, for example, it's not just about the password, it's about, is it you who writes it? Is it you who holds the phones based on history? Do you hold it like that? So they can actually detect whether it's a fraud based on other parameters than we're used to up until today. But again, it's a huge amount of data that they need to process in real time. Social applications. Redis is used in social applications. Twitter, Facebook, all of those companies are using Redis because of, again, recommendations and again, processing huge amount of data in real time. And we have one slide to talk about, a few slides to talk about social apps and personalization. And of course, personalization. And personalization is very, very important for customer retaining today. So a lot of organizations, even banks today, insurance company, want to make the experience for their customer much more personalized in order to retain them with the organizations, because again, the competition is huge. So Redis is suited for what we call modern applications. So we're talking about, as you can see, caching is one of those use cases when Redis is very strong and is very, very popular. But, for example, for high-speed transactions, analytics, messaging, machine learning, fast data ingestions, jobs and queues, geo, search, all of those use cases, you see Redis today as a perfect fit. And Tal mentioned some of the models that we introduced that actually allow us to do it, search, for example, etc. But we see Redis expanding into more and more use cases. So if we talk about, for example, transactional use cases or analytical use cases, so transactional use cases, and we have a lot of organizations using Redis for that. For that, we talk about financial transactions, pricing management, advertising bid. We just had a use case presentation talking about ads, user profile management, location-based processing, and then for analytical, we have counting, leaderboards, page ranking, recommendation engines. Most of the time, Redis is perfect fit, and you see Redis being used. This, for example, the gaming companies and travel companies, most of them are using Redis as either for caching or for more advanced scenarios. We have a lot of companies using Redis as their main database. Everything is running on Redis. Another thing that's very, very important about Redis, and this is something I mentioned at the beginning of the session today, is the community. Redis is unique compared to all the other open source platforms today, is that most of the open source platforms, the main contributor is the database manufacturer himself. Redis, the community is very involved in also contributing into the product. It's not just an open source owned by a company, it's really an open platform. There are something like 219 contributors, 3 City of Hashedin is one of them. So it's a product that is also being supported by the community. And it has the largest community compared to all the other products today. It supports, it has 162 different clients, open source clients that you can use, different languages. Support 52 different languages, and that's growing as well. You have everything in GitHub, you have a different project on the internet. So going with Redis, you're part of a big community that you can always find a solution. There's always somebody there to help you. And that's also very important when people choosing an open source platform. It's not just about that it's an open source, it's about that there's a community behind it that can support it. And part of our objectives here with the session today, but also in the future, is to bring you to be part of this community, to make the Redis community in Bangalore in India a real active community, because there are a huge amount of users, and we want you to become more active and to build this local community. So let's talk a little bit about Redis Labs. Redis Labs, again, we are the enterprise version or the commercial behind Redis open source. We have an headquarter in Mountain View in the US, but we have offices across the world. We have offices in the US, offices in Europe, and we are also now in EMEA building offices. We're working very closely with Ashidin here in India. We have two offerings for our enterprise solution. We have the first offering, what we call Redis Cloud. What is Redis Cloud? Redis Cloud is a service, is a database as a service, fully managed service that can be deployed on any public cloud. We have it on Azure, we have it on AWS, we have it on Google Cloud, we have it on IBM Software, we have it on Heroku, Pivotal Cloud Foundry, etc. So if you want to use our technology on a public cloud, you can use it as a service on each one of those providers. One of the things that we also provide is sort of an hybrid cloud. So if you want to have some of it on Google, some of it on AWS, or you want to migrate between those clouds, we have the ability to migrate because we have the database, so we provide you with very easy migrations of databases between clouds. We also have what we call Redis Cloud Private. It's also a managed service, but it's a managed service on your private cloud on AWS. So for example, if you have your own VPC on AWS and you want to have a service on your VPC due to security, etc., we can provide you with a personal service, cloud service on your VPC, on your cloud, only for you. But we also have what we call Redis Pack. Redis Pack is a fully downloadable version, that you can download, but you'll have to manage and install yourself. You can install it on your data center. You can install it on any environment, either local or cloud. But again, you'll have to install it and manage it. So we have both things. We have the managed solution, cloud managed solution. We have the on-prem, and we have some customers that are using both as a hybrid solution. By the way, any questions so far? Yes. Sorry? Yes, you can. It depends on the use case, but yes, you can. We have customers who are using it for analytical processing. Yes. Rollback, no. We are not the traditional rational databases, but there's a way to overcome it on the application side. We can go into more details about that, but with Redis, you have to think differently than the old way. But rollback, no. We have other ways for consistency and things like that. So let me jump forward. We have around 7,500 enterprise customers, paying customers worldwide. We are managing around 250,000 databases in production for our customers. Just to give you a short list of some of the names who've been using our solution, you can see different verticals. This is just a very short list of some of the customers who are using us on different verticals. So you can see banks, for example, is one of our most growing vertical. Interesting, bank and insurance. And the reason for that, as I mentioned before, is personalization. Most of the banks wants to migrate the customers to what we call the digital experience. And digital experience means managing huge amount of customers, doing transactions at the same time, but also providing a lot of personalization to retain them as part of the customers of that bank. Apple, Cisco, Dell India that are going to present today, so thank you very much for presenting. Twitter, for example, as you can see, Twitter is the biggest open source users, but Twitter bought a company called Periscope, and Periscope, they had some issues with the open source. They couldn't handle the amount of operations. They needed additional features. So the entire Periscope database is running on Redis Labs service, and also Twitter now are looking to add in more and more of the database to us. Twitch, Microsoft, MSN is one of our biggest customers. Again, the entire caching of MSN website is running on Redis Labs. although it's running on Azure, and Azure have their own Redis implementation, they decided to go with Redis Labs due to the maturity of the product and some of the features that the open source can't provide. That was important to them. But you can see most of the leading gaming companies, EA, Playtika, Review are using us, and Travel, Expedia, Hotel Tonight, TripAdvisor, Amadeus, TGS, all of them are using Redis and using Redis Labs. We also have India presence. This is a short list of some of our Indian customers. As you can see, Dell, Freshworks, Infosys, Cognizant, Wipro, Sapient, Exidelife, who are here today as well. And very interesting, you know, every time you go to the shop and you buy something and you pay additional tax, the calculation, part of it is being done by Redis Labs, so we're also part of the GST project, the new calculation engine together with Infosys. Redis Labs is part of that solution engine as well. This is the latest Forrester report, putting us as leaders, but I'm going to jump that one. This is the latest Gartner report. You can see that you have the traditional quadrant with the traditional rational databases, SQL, IBM. The MySQL quadrant, it's only Redis Labs. I don't know if you can see it. MongoDB and Cassandra are the only ones who are present in that quadrant. So what do? Well, we actually invested a lot of many years to develop, as I mentioned, this layer on top of the open source that provide additional functionality. And what I'm going to do right now is to give you a glimpse of exactly what is the Redis Enterprise platform, what does it provide. And again, if you have questions, feel free to ask. So first of all, what we did, we developed a state-of-the-art database on top of the open source that, first of all, multimodal, can support additional use cases and scenarios than the open source version. Some of it is due to the modules that we released together with the open source. Some of it is with some of the unique features that I'm going to show to you today that are part of the enterprise version. Second thing, we are ACID compliant. I know that there's a lot of customers, especially in the financial industry, that require us to be ACID compliant. So the enterprise version is ACID compliant. And another unique feature that we introduced this year is our master solution, a geo-distribution platform. Now, up until now, the Redis Enterprise allows you to have asynchronous synchronization between multi-regions, so you can read only. Now we read and write. Now, what is unique about our solution? Usually when you develop an active-active or a master solution, you have to pay on performance. And before we release something, we didn't just want to release the regular master. We had to make sure that we're always obtaining the main advantages of Redis, and one of them is performance. So we are using a new technology called CRDT. It's a conflict-free replication data types that still allows you to have a multi-regional replication, master, active, but with the local latency. So if you have a site in the US and a site in Europe, I can read and write to each one of the sites, but the latency will still be less than a millisecond. And that's the advantage of that solution because we have to maintain performance. And that is something that we released this year, and it's available. So later on, if anybody wants to see a demo or interested to get more information, feel free to talk to me or Tal, and we'll be more than happy to arrange for you guys to get more info about that. So what is the main differentiation between the Redis Enterprise, or the main advantages that we have on top of the Redis open source that comes with the Redis Enterprise? As I mentioned before, Redis is a single-threaded technology. This is the reason it's very, very fast. But if you want to scale your Redis, for example, we have customers who are running terabytes of information on Redis, you need to add more processing powers or more what we call Redis instances, part of your database, in order to grow either the amount of data you can manage or the performance you can achieve. To do that on the open source is not simple. It's complicated. You have to manage it from the application side, how to divide the keys. Sometimes you have to take the application down when you need to grow. So what we did, we developed what we call it a zero latency proxy that enables you to do this scaling in a very, very simple way automatically, hiding it from the application. So the application speaks to the proxy, and we do all the scaling, automatic scaling behind the scenes. So we can scale automatically by the amount of data or the performance. For example, we had a customer in the US for AT&T. He needed 5 million operations per second, and the only way to achieve that was with our solution, because with our proxy, it can run multiple shards or multiple instances of Redis and reach these 5 million operations per second. So we have this ability of automatic scaling and no downtime. So you can do it automatically. So your application continue running, there's no downtime, nothing, everything is transparent to the application. Second thing, ACID compliancy, we talked about it, and of course, cluster support for the module. So if you're using Bloom, Filter, or JSON, or Search, and you want to scale it again, with the enterprise, you can scale it as well. Second thing is our high availability mechanism. Our high availability mechanism is different than the open source. It's much more mature. It's been around for 7 years. It's a different implementation, although we do support the Sentinel protocol. So you can choose which protocol you want to use. But our high availability is more efficient, requires only one master, one slave. It has automatic failover, no data loss, and additional functionalities that are important to enterprise customers. A lot of enterprise do move from the cloud, like AWS Elasticache, to us, because they experience a lot of data loss during failovers or long recovery time. So it was very important to them because it's mission critical info, and that's something that we provide. We also provide persistency to this. We provide also DR. We provide additional functionality to enable you to have a 9.7 or a 9.9, 9.5 service always on. We also investing a lot in making Redis more stable, more predictable. We have management tool, UIs, log files, in order that enables you to manage your Redis environment in a very, very simple way. And of course, the active geo distribution. One thing I wanted to mention about our proxy and scaling solution, another benefit that we've got, and this is mainly for those cloud customers, is the ability to run Redis in sort of a multi-tenancy mode. A lot of the time, you know, on a cloud service, for example, when you need to run Redis, you need to have a dedicated instance per Redis database. And that's problematic because a lot of customers are running multiple databases. Maybe you can run multiple small databases for production, UAT, or even for QA testing, etc. Our solution enables you to run multiple databases on one instance. So you can have one instance with multiple processing power, and you can run multiple different unique databases on that instance. That can save a lot of infrastructure cost when you're deploying large clusters of Redis, or multiple clusters of Redis. So multi-tenancy is another thing that we support on top of the open source. Another thing that is unique to Redis Enterprise is Redis on Flash. What is Redis on Flash? As I mentioned, we have a lot of customers as using a large amount of data on Redis. Now, when you're running terabyte of data on Redis, you don't need to keep all the data on the RAM all the time. So for those customers, there is a solution called Redis on Flash. Redis on Flash is a solution that enables you to use SSD as a memory extension to RAM. The way we do it is very, very simple. We keep the keys on the RAM and the value on the flash. Also, we keep what we call hotkeys, a percentage of hotkeys on RAM. And you can play with the percentage. It depends how much you want to keep. And of course, there is still a payment in latency, but still the latency that you're going to get with the SSD is something sometimes can be even less than a millisecond or few milliseconds. So you can still get a very, very fast database with a very high performance, but running on SSD, and that can save a lot on the infrastructure cost. Instead of running everything on RAM, you can use SSD as well. And again, we have a few customers already in production using this solution, large customers using huge data sets, and that's available on the enterprise. And of course, our support, 24/7 support and consultancy, that's part of the enterprise product. And some more features that are coming, like security enhancement, things like that, that are important for our enterprise customer. So first of all, how much time have I got? 3 or 4 minutes. I had a few slides about specific use cases like personalization and social, but I don't think I have enough time to show it. So maybe I show it later. So any questions so far regarding the enterprise version? Yes. Correct.
Do you have any idea when you are going to be available on AWS?
You mean AWS Elasticache? Yes. It's Elasticache decision. Because what Elasticache are doing, Elasticache it's their own implementation of Redis open source. It's not 100% Redis open source. They have their own implementation. So it's up to them where they're going to update. With version 4 modules, it's a question, because whether AWS is going to adapt it or not, because it requires a lot of work. That's something that we've already done on our enterprise version and open source, but it's a question for Elasticache. Yes.
You mentioned the cross-shard operations, right, in the sharding.
Yes.
So is it possible to do atomic operations across shards, or because you put two different buckets like acid and sharding?
So the question is?
I mean, is it supported to have atomic operations across shards?
Yes, we support. That's exactly what the proxy does. The proxy actually is responsible for the resharding, and everything is transparent. So the proxy is responsible for the resharding and for the data. But everything is across the shard, transparent.
It could still be atomic. It could still be atomic.
It could still be
across the shards. Like if
yes.
I have, I'm doing an operation. I want it to be atomic across multiple shards.
Yes. Am I correct? Autonomic operation across multiple shards.
Atomic operations across shards.
Atomic operations in the same shard, the answer is yes. Atomic across shards, I'm not sure I follow the question. Like if you want to have it, you mean with multi-exec or something like that? A transaction? No, at the moment it's not possible to run it in a cluster mode.
You can discuss further offline. Any other questions?
So you talked about the features that you provide in transactions.
Mm-hmm.
So does those features are available in open source Redis, or just those features are available only for Redis Enterprise?
When it comes to transactions?
Transactions, yeah.
Tal, you would like to take it, like consistency, etc. There are some features that are available only in enterprise, and there are some features that are available on open source. Tal, would you like just to elaborate?
Okay, sorry, it's hard to hear from the back of the room. What was the question about consistency?
Yeah, so basically you have mentioned about a bunch of features regarding this transactions, that is atomic eventual consistency. So does those features available in the open source version of Redis, or just available to Redis Enterprise version?
Okay, so both in the open source and in the enterprise version, you have several ways to have consistency, and I think what we try to do in the enterprise version works in a bit different way to provide kind of a tunable consistency. So the way it works without consistency, let's start by that. By default, we are using async connections because we want to have better performance, throughput, etc., and we don't want to have anything blocked. But we understand that sometimes people need some consistency, and for that, we built it as follows. So we have, the master shard that replicates to the slave, and then it persists the data to disk. We do that from the slave and, the master. Now, that's the standard way it works without consistency. If we want to have kind of a tunable consistency, we can decide when we want to get the response, whether it's when we get the request to the master. That is the default way to do that. And that means that you get the best performance, but it doesn't come with the same guarantees. Now, you can have better consistency if you use the wait command, for example, and then you can get a response how many slaves were updated. So, for example, you can be sure that you send the command and it got also to the slave from the application. So that gives you a guarantee that it's available in additional slave. In addition to that, we actually have the ability to use persistence with AOF every write. So that, of course, has some overhead in terms of performance and everything, but it is possible to do that, meaning that you can have, you can use the command, the wait command, and you can set up AOF every write, and that will assure you that you have, the request got to the master, got to the slave, and got to persistence before it gives you a response.
So it means like a quorum-like implementation. Like you can mention the number of replicas have returned the reply, then you can accept the result, like those sort of implementation?
So not necessarily, it's a question how you design the system, but I think the design of the cluster itself, there are all kinds of options here. You can have several masters and one slave per master, or we can have a different setup. But the main thing about the consistency we need to understand is that it's tunable, meaning that you can have data persisted to either the slave or up to the storage. Because it has such a significant effect, and we are using Redis for performance usually, we have to take that into account, and it's kind of a trade-off. That's why we try to give a module that is kind of tunable.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, thanks.
Any more questions? It's a specific feature of the enterprise that enable us to do multi-tenancy in a way that you can run multiple separated database on one instance. Now, okay.
Sorry, the question was what's the special thing about the multi-tenancy in the enterprise version? So the multi-tenancy allows us to do several things. The first thing is that we can have a cluster and create multiple databases on that cluster, meaning that even if we have like 60 nodes, we can create 100 databases on it, different databases that uses separate shards per database. And per database, we can have either a single shard or multiple shards. And that we can also migrate shards between nodes and have a lot of flexibility there through the enterprise version. This is a solution that is available with something like 250,000 databases, commercial databases on the cloud alone. So this is something that is very stable now, and it's really easy and flexible to use. There are a lot of people who use it now, so you can ask them. That's at least what I think. It's simply a totally different solution. The work that was done on the Redis cluster project, I know the terms sound exactly the same, but it's simply because we are not very good at naming stuff. But it's basically a totally different solution. It has nothing to do with the enterprise clustering solution. Has nothing to do with the Redis cluster nor the Redis Sentinel solution.
Hi.
Last one, yes.
So I was curious to know about the object level security like we provide in SQL Server or Oracle and things like that, where we can have the same application or multiple applications using the same cluster or Redis database, but having namespace or schema level access privileges. Is it the tenant solution, or is there some other solution for that? Like roles and privileges and things like that?
Good question, because Tal is from Oracle.
Okay, so we were asked about special security measures that we can have, and specifically about authorization. And yes, the answer, the question is exactly what you need. We are not aiming to be the Oracle of Redis. And we know Redis has to be fast, and for that to happen, we have to think what is important for the customer. And therefore, we decided, first of all, on the cluster level, you can have several roles per user that gives different privileges for every user. One user can create databases, another one can't, and stuff like that. So this is something that you can clearly do, and it can also integrate with LDAP if you have that set up in your environment. On the database level, you can set up a password. That's something you already know. And you can specify to which IPs, from which machines you can access the database. So these kind of things are available. Also SSL and many other features, but I try to be focused.
One thing that is very important for us regarding the roadmap, we're investing a lot in security. So by the way, it will be interesting to get your feedbacks about how you see things, so we can also deliver those feedbacks back, because this is one of the most important things for us when it comes to the roadmap of next year, is enhancing the security a lot. It's investing a lot of time and money.
The question if it's possible for one user to manage all of these databases? In the current version, no, but it is planned, it will be possible in the future. I think we are out of time.
Yeah, but just, we can take this question. So even in each database, you can be running as a separate process, and you can set a separate password for that, and that way you can restrict different, even in the enterprise version.
But it's not the first time we go to this place with a lot of customers. This is a high priority thing. It's going to be
Just extension to the
that would be
multi-tenant.
the last question, and then we'll have to move on. And we can take questions further. Yeah,
we can take later on during the
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, multi-tenant, these features are available in Redis Enterprises version, right? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, if we, there are the previous screens shown like a different type of installations available. One is for in the cloud, and another one is for virtual private and private clouds and everything. So we need to do some kind of R&D. Those features is available in even private clouds or something. I mean, if we take that software and do some installations in the other things.
There are even more things you can do in the cloud, but even easier security integrations. For example, storage encryption and many others that are built into the product. But it differs between clouds. Every cloud has different solutions to these kind of requirements. Also limitation based on IPs, for example, based on ports and based on users. There are a lot of things you can do, and we can cover them offline if you're interested.
Yeah, thanks.
But multi-tenancy is available on cloud and
On both. On both.
Thank you so much, Amir, and thank you all the people who asked questions.